Admiral Elizabeth Anderson stood at the viewport of the United Earth Defense Station Paramount, her steel-gray eyes fixed on the massive holographic display of the approaching Vraki fleet. The alien warships, with their distinctive blade-like silhouettes, had appeared at the edge of the Sol system's Kuiper belt just hours ago. Their arrival had triggered every defense protocol in the system, but Anderson hadn't given the order to raise shields or power up weapons. She knew what was coming. "Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Jack Reynolds called from his station. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies. It's their challenge." Anderson's lips curved into a slight smile. The action pulled at the scar that ran from her left temple to her jaw, a reminder of the Mars insurrection that had claimed her family 15 years ago. "Put it through, Lieutenant. Let's hear what our new friends have to say." A holographic display shifted, revealing the imposing figure of High Commander Vrak. The Vraki leader's scaled skin gleamed like polished obsidian, his 4 eyes glowing with an inner fire that spoke of absolute conviction in his species' superiority. "People of Earth," Vrak's translated voice boomed through the command center. "We are the Vraki Dominion, conquerors of 12 systems, masters of combat, and arbiters of civilization. We offer you the honor of combat trials. Prove your worth in battle, or face extinction. You have 1 Earth-hour to." The High Commander's speech faltered as an unexpected sound filled the channel. Laughter. Clear, confident, almost musical laughter. Admiral Anderson had stepped into view, her battle-scared face visible to the entire Vraki command. "High Commander Vrak," she said, still chuckling, "I must thank you. It's been a rather boring month, and my warriors were getting restless." The Vraki leader's upper right eye twitched, a sign of confusion in his species. This was not the reaction their challenges usually received. "You find our challenge amusing, human." "Oh, incredibly so." Anderson's voice carried the same tone one might use when explaining something simple to a child. "You see, we've studied your species since you entered our detection range 3 months ago. 12 systems conquered, all following the same pattern. Challenge, combat trials, submission or extinction. Very efficient, very honorable." She paused, her expression hardening. "Very predictable." The command center had gone silent. Even the usually bustling technical crews had stopped to watch the exchange. They knew their admiral, knew the steel behind her smile. "You dare mock the sacred combat trials." Vrak's translator struggled to convey his growing rage. "Mock them? No, High Commander. We accept them. But perhaps I should make something clear." Anderson stepped closer to the projection, her voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow carried more weight than any shout. "You're not the first species to threaten Earth with extinction. You're not even the first this century. But you might be the first to learn why that's a terrible mistake." She gestured, and the holographic display split, showing tactical readouts of the Vraki fleet. "Your ships are impressive. Plasma lance technology, quantum-hardened shields, even some rudimentary phase shift capabilities. All very advanced, very sophisticated." Her smile returned, but it never reached her eyes. "All very visible." Vrak's confusion was evident now. "What are you implying, human?" "Simply this. You want combat. We'll give you devastation. Not because we have to, but because you've asked for it. And the Vraki Dominion will learn what the Mars insurgents learned. What everyone who has ever challenged humanity has learned." Anderson's voice carried the weight of history, of countless battles and hard-won victories. "We don't fight for honor. We fight to win." The Admiral turned away from the projection, addressing her crew even as her words carried to the Vraki. "Initiate protocol shadow dance. Let's show our friends what human combat really looks like." As warning klaxons began to sound throughout the station, Anderson cast one last look at the increasingly unsettled Vraki commander. "Your hour started the moment you entered our space, Commander Vrak. I suggest you prepare your warriors. They're about to learn the difference between combat and war. The transmission cut off, leaving the Vraki fleet to wonder why their long-range sensors had suddenly gone dark, and why their secondary systems were detecting thousands of small energy signatures that hadn't been there moments before. Captain Michael Walker stood on the bridge of the U.S. Trickster, a slight smirk playing across his features as he watched the Vraki championship, Eternal Victory, approach the designated combat zone. The vessel was a thing of beauty. All sleek lines and gleaming metal, its hull adorned with the marks of 12 previous victory marks. "They're certainly compensating for something," he muttered, then louder to his crew. "Status report." Lieutenant Sarah Hayes, his tactical officer, responded without taking her eyes off her holographic display. "Their weapons are hot, shields at maximum. They're running active scans, trying to get a read on us." She paused, a small chuckle escaping. "They're having trouble believing we're actually combat-worthy." The Trickster was, by all external appearances, an outdated light cruiser. Its hull showed signs of wear, and several external plates appeared to be mismatched, as if salvaged from different ships. To the Vraki's sophisticated sensors, it must have looked like little more than space debris. That was exactly the point. "Open a channel," Walker ordered, straightening his collar. "Let's give them the show they're expecting." The Vraki commander's image appeared on the main screen, his 4 eyes narrowing in what might have been discussed. "This is the warrior vessel you send to face the Eternal Victory. We expected better from those who laughed at our challenge." Walker put on his best apologetic expression. "Oh, my sincerest apologies. You see, all our better ships were busy. Spring cleaning, you know how it is." He gestured vaguely at his bridge. "But don't worry, we'll try our best not to disappoint." The Vraki commander's upper right eye twitched violently. "You mock the sacred combat trials. Very well. Your death will be, yeah, swift and honorable, I'm sure." Walker cut him off, winking at his crew. "Tell you what, I'll give you the first shot, free of charge." The transmission cut off abruptly. Moments later, the Eternal Victory's forward plasma lances lit up like miniature suns. "Impact in 3, 2, 1. Hayes counted down. The massive energy beams passed right through the Trickster, continuing into empty space. On the Vraki vessel's bridge, confusion turned to shock as their sensors struggled to explain what had just happened. "Now," Walker said softly, "let's show them what the Ghost Division can really do." The Trickster's outer hull began to shift, the seemingly random patches of mismatched metal revealing themselves as quantum-locked weapon ports. The ship's entire structure rippled like a mirage as its phase shift drive fully activated. "Target their weapons and propulsion," Walker ordered. "Remember, we want them alive to tell the story." What followed was less of a battle and more of a dance. The Trickster phased in and out of normal space, each transition timed perfectly to deliver a precise strike against the larger vessel. Quantum-tipped missiles slipped through the Vraki's shields as if they weren't there. Electromagnetic pulses, fired from weapons that shouldn't have fit on a ship the Trickster's size, disrupted the Eternal Victory systems one by one. "Sir," Hayes called out, "they're attempting to call for support." Walker nodded. "Let them. But first, patch me through again." The Vraki commander's face appeared once more, now lit by the red glow of emergency lighting. What are you?" "Just a ghost," Walker replied cheerfully. "A ghost who's about to give you a very important message to deliver." He leaned forward, all traces of humor vanishing from his expression. "Tell your leaders that this was just a taste. Tell them that every human ship they face will have different tricks, different weapons, different ways to turn their honorable combat into a nightmare." As if to emphasize his point, the Trickster fired one last shot, a carefully calibrated pulse that left the Eternal Victory spinning helplessly in space, its engines dead and its weapons offline. Oh, and one more thing, Walker added as his ship began to fade from normal space again. Next time, send something actually challenging. This was just embarrassing. The last thing the Vraki crew saw before communications died was Captain Walker's salute, a gesture that would haunt their nightmares for years to come. Admiral Elizabeth Anderson watched the holographic replay of the Trickster's victory for the third time, her expression neutral as the Vraki warship spun helplessly in the void. The United Earth Defense Council chamber was silent, its members processing the implications of what they'd just witnessed. "They'll demand full-scale combat now," she said, breaking the silence. "Their pride won't allow anything else." As if on cue, the chamber's central display lit up with an incoming transmission. High Commander Vrock's image appeared, his scales darkened with rage. "Your mockery of sacred combat will not stand. We demand full military engagement, fleet against fleet, army against army." Anderson's response was swift, but not what anyone expected. "Agreed, Commander. But since you've invoked the right of full military engagement, we'll be fighting according to our terms." She nodded to someone off-screen, and a document appeared in the transmission. "Article 7 of your own combat trials. The challenged party may select the nature of extended warfare." Vrock's upper eyes narrowed. "What trickery is this?" "No trickery, Commander. Just the rules you live by." Anderson's smile held no warmth. "We choose irregular warfare, guerrilla tactics, asymmetric engagement, full-spectrum combat with no restrictions on method or means." That is not honorable combat," Vrock sputtered. "Show me where in your sacred laws it says combat must be honorable," Anderson countered. "You wanted war, Commander. Now you'll learn what war really is." The transmission cut off as Vrock began a roaring response. Anderson turned to the council members. "Operation Dust Devil is already in motion. Would you like to see what the Vraki have been ignoring for the past 3 months?" She gestured, and the chamber's holographic display transformed into a 3-dimensional map of the space between Earth and the Vraki fleet. What had appeared to be random debris fields suddenly lit up with thousands of tiny points of light. "Micro-drones," she explained, each one no larger than a coffee cup, powered by miniaturized fusion cells. They've been masquerading as space debris, letting the Vraki's ships pass right through their formation. Right now, there are over 3 million of them, each carrying enough punch to cripple a fighter. Counselor James Matthews leaned forward. "They haven't detected them." "The Vraki rely too much on their advanced sensors," Anderson replied. "They look for energy signatures, shield harmonics, weapon systems. Our drones use old-school chemical rockets for positioning and stay completely cold until activated. Sometimes the best place to hide is in plain sight." She touched another control, and new data streams appeared. "We've also been seeding their fleet with quantum-entangled communication nodes disguised as cosmic radiation. Every time they've scanned us, we've been scanning them back and planting the seeds of their defeat." "And now?" another counselor asked. "Now we show them why humanity hasn't had a proper war in 50 years, Anderson said. "We've gotten too good at ending them before they start." She activated her neural link, connecting to the fleet command network. "All units, execute Operation Dust Devil. Authorization code, mirror break." Across the vast expanse of space, thousands of seemingly innocent pieces of debris suddenly came to life. The Vraki fleet's formation was perfect for traditional combat and completely vulnerable to what was about to hit them. "One more thing," Anderson added, almost as an afterthought. Commander Walker's little performance wasn't just about humiliation. The Trickster's phase-shifting technology created quantum distortions that our drones are using as cover. While they were focused on his light show, we seeded their entire fleet with dormant neural disruptors. The council chamber erupted in murmurs of appreciation. This was why Anderson had been chosen to lead Earth's defense. She never fought the battle in front of her, but the one 3 moves ahead. "Send a message to High Commander Vrock," she ordered. "Tell him, the game has changed. Welcome to human warfare." As the message was transmitted, the first wave of micro-drones activated, their tiny forms glowing like newborn stars against the backdrop of space. The art of deception was about to become the science of devastation. Commander Jessica Hayes pressed her body against the curved wall of the Vraki battleship's maintenance shaft, her biomimetic combat suit shifting colors to match the metal surface. The alien ship's internal sensors swept past her position for the 100th time, and for the 100th time, they detected nothing but background radiation. Ghostly to shadow control, she vocalized, the quantum communicator in her neural link, transmitting her words through the enemy's electronic warfare jamming. "We're in position, beginning Phase 2. Admiral Anderson's voice replied in her mind, clear as crystal despite being light years away. "Confirmed, Ghost Lead. The drones have them distracted. You have a green light." Hayes signaled her team. 4 other shadows, as the Special Operations Operatives were called. Each one was a master of the new art of asymmetric space warfare. Their biomimetic suits, derived from Earth's cephalopod species, could match any surface pattern or temperature. Their neural processors could hack and subvert enemy systems faster than any traditional computer. "Remember," she transmitted to her team, "we're not here to destroy. We're here to make them destroy themselves." The team split up, each member moving through the Vraki ship like ghosts. Hayes made her way to the primary computer core, her suit adjusting to match the changing patterns of the ship's interior. A patrol of Vraki warriors passed within inches of her position, their 4 eyes scanning for threats, but finding nothing. "Package 1, deployed," came the first report from her team. Somewhere in the engineering section, quantum disruptors were being integrated into the ship's power grid. "Package 2, in place." Another voice, another piece of the puzzle. Nanite colonies that would slowly reprogram the ship's navigation systems. Hayes reached the computer core, her fingers dancing across its access panel. The Vraki's encryption was good, but it was designed to stop brute force attacks, not the subtle art of human hacking. "You know what the Vraki's greatest weakness is?" she asked her team as she worked. "They think technology only works one way, their way." The core's defenses fell one by one, not through force, but through misdirection. Hayes's neural link connected with the ship's systems, her mind dancing through its networks like a leaf on the wind. "Package 3, ready," she announced, uploading the quantum virus that would turn the ship's own combat protocols against it. "Beginning final phase." Above her, a voice spoke in the Vraki language. Hayes froze, her suit instantly matching the core's housing. A Vraki engineer stood at the upper level, all 4 eyes fixed on a display showing mounting system failures across the ship. "Ghost 4 to all points," one of her team reported. "They're beginning to notice the changes." Multiple alert signals detected. Hayes smiled behind her suit's camouflage. "Right on schedule. Initiate Symphony Protocol." Across the massive battleship, things began to go wrong in ways the Vraki had never imagined possible. Navigation systems reported different locations to different stations. Weapon controls responded to commands with random delays. Internal sensors showed phantom intruders that disappeared when investigated. "This is what we do," Hayes transmitted to her team as they made their way back to their extraction points. "We don't fight the enemy's strengths. We turn them into weaknesses." The Vraki ship's commander was already sending distress calls, reporting an enemy attack. But there was no enemy to fight, no battle to win, just the slow, inexorable dissolution of everything they relied upon. "Ghost Lead to shadow control," Hayes reported as her team reached their stealth shuttle. "Phase 2 complete. The sword of eternal night is compromised. Moving to next target. Excellent work, Commander, Anderson replied. The other teams report similar success. 15 Vraki capital ships infiltrated, all reporting mysterious malfunctions. Hayes settled into her shuttle's command chair, watching through its stealth fields as the mighty Vraki battleship began to turn in erratic circles, its crew fighting against their own systems. "You know what the best part is, Admiral?" she asked, allowing herself a small smile. "They still think they're looking for an army. They'll never understand that their entire fleet was defeated by 20 people and a lot of clever programming." The stealth shuttle disappeared into the void, leaving behind a fleet that was already tearing itself apart from the inside. This was human warfare, not with fleets and armies, but with shadows and whispers and the art of making the impossible look easy. Robert Wrench Turner wasn't a soldier. 6 hours ago, his biggest concern had been calibrating the mining colony's deep-core lasers for a new mineral seam. Now he stood in the colony's control center, watching as 30 Vraki warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Europa colony's orbit. "They really think we're defenseless," he said, more to himself than to the other civilians gathered around the holographic display. "They actually think a mining colony won't have teeth." Sarah Mitchell, a 16-year-old gaming champion who'd been visiting her parents on the colony, looked up from her neural interface console. "The last transport's away, Mr. Turner. All non-essential personnel are evacuated." "Good." Turner cracked his knuckles, a habit from his early days in the asteroid mines. "Now let's show these aliens why you don't corner engineers who spend their lives working with high-energy equipment." The colony's main display lit up with incoming communication. A Vraki commander appeared, his scaled face set in what they'd learned was an expression of smug superiority. "Attention, human mining installation." The alien's translated voice boomed. "Your military cannot protect you. Surrender now and—" "Yeah, about that." Turner cut him off, adjusting his mining foreman's cap. "We've got a counter-offer. You've got 30 seconds to retreat before we demonstrate why human safety regulations are so strict." The Vraki commander blinked all 4 eyes in confusion. "You dare." 25 seconds. Turner counted down, then turned to his team. "Michelle, how are the modifications to the mineral separation arrays?" Michelle Chen, the colony's chief maintenance engineer, grinned. "Reconfigured all 20 of them. Turns out the frequency we use to shatter platinum bonds works really well on Vraki hull plating." 15 seconds. Sarah called out, her fingers flying over her gaming interface, which now controlled the colony's swarm of maintenance drones. Each one had been reprogrammed with combat protocols from her favorite strategy game. "You cannot possibly." The Vraki commander started again. 10 seconds. Turner interrupted. "Oh, and Felix. How's that special project?" Felix Ramirez, the colony's hydroponic engineer, looked up from his station. "Chemical smoke screens ready. Who knew growing plants would teach me so much about particle disruption?" 5 seconds, Sarah announced. The Vraki commander's expression shifted from confusion to concern as his sensors detected energy buildups throughout the colony. But they weren't weapons signatures, not any that his systems recognized. "Time's up," Turner said cheerfully. "Sarah, light him up." The teenage gamer's hands became a blur. 500 maintenance drones, each normally used for hull repairs and external maintenance, swarmed out of hidden docks. Their welding lasers, now operating at full power, carved through Vraki fighter screens like paper. "Michelle, show them why we don't stand near the separators." 20 massive arrays, designed to break down mineral compounds, fired in perfect sequence. The concentrated energy beams hit the Vraki ship shields at exactly the resonant frequency needed to shatter their crystalline structure. "Felix, make some cover." The hydroponic engineer released his creation, a cloud of engineered particles that blocked both visual and sensor readings, created from modified plant spores and nutrient solutions. In the chaos that followed, the Vraki fleet learned a harsh lesson about human ingenuity. Mining lasers powerful enough to cut through plantoids carved up warships. Maintenance drones swarmed like angry insects, their simple tools becoming devastating weapons in the hands of a gaming prodigy. Even the colony's waste recyclers had been repurposed, their containment fields now serving as makeshift tractor beams. Admiral Anderson was right, Turner said, watching as the mighty Vraki fleet was torn apart by mining equipment and the imagination of desperate civilians. The best weapons are the ones your enemy doesn't recognize as weapons. Sarah looked up from her console, her eyes shining with the thrill of applying her gaming skills to real combat. They're retreating. 3 of their capital ships are completely disabled, and the rest are running with heavy damage. Turner nodded, then opened a channel to the fleeing Vraki commander. Next time you want to attack civilians, remember this. On Earth, even our children know how to turn your nightmares into reality. As the Vraki fleet limped away, Turner couldn't help but smile. They'd just won a space battle with mining equipment, maintenance drones, and a teenager's video game skills. Sometimes, he reflected, being human was its own kind of superpower. Admiral Elizabeth Anderson stood in the Strategic Command Center of the U.S. Reckoning, her eyes fixed on the massive holographic display showing the entire theater of war. The Vraki fleet had finally gathered for what they believed would be their decisive strike. Over 200 warships formed in their traditional combat pattern. "Status of Operation Checkmate?" she asked, her voice calm despite the tension in the room. Commander Marcus Reynolds, her strategic operations chief, brought up a new layer of data. The self-replicating manufacturing units we seeded through their territory are all in position. 3 months of careful placement, every single one disguised as debris or damaged probes, and our little surprises inside their supply chain. Active and ready, Reynolds replied with a grim smile. Every time they've stopped to resupply. Our nanite colonies have been spreading. Their entire logistics network is compromised. Anderson nodded, then touched a control on her neural interface. This is Admiral Anderson to all commands. Execute Operation Checkmate. Authorization code. Endgame rising. Across vast stretches of space, hidden systems came to life. The Vraki's carefully organized supply lines began to dissolve as seemingly solid materials transformed into useless mass. Ammunition became inert. Fuel tanks found themselves filled with unresponsive liquid. Message from High Commander Vrak. Lieutenant Sarah Collins announced. He's demanding to know what we've done to their supply ships. Put him through, Anderson said, straightening her uniform. It's time he learned the true meaning of strategic warfare. Vrak's image appeared, his scales nearly black with rage. What sorcery is this? What have you done to our sacred fleet? Sorcery. Anderson raised an eyebrow. No, Commander. This is something far more terrifying. This is human engineering. She gestured, and the display split to show the Vraki's crumbling supply network. While you were focused on honor and combat, we were playing a different game entirely. She touched another control, and new data streams appeared. Your communication networks are now broadcasting human rock music instead of military orders. Your automated defense systems are playing hide and seek with your own ships and your vaunted supply lines. They're being transformed at the molecular level by manufacturing systems we planted months ago. Impossible. Vrak roared. No species could. Could what? Anderson cut him off. Think this far ahead. Plan this extensively. Turn your own territory into a weapon against you. Her voice hardened. You never understood what you were fighting, Commander. Humans don't just prepare for battle. We reshape the entire universe to ensure our victory. On the strategic display, more systems began to fall. The quantum-entangled nodes planted throughout the Vraki fleet started their final protocol, turning ship against ship, squadron against squadron. Targeting systems identified friends as foes. Navigation computers plotted collision courses instead of evasion patterns. "You see, Commander," Anderson continued, her voice almost gentle now. "This isn't about winning battles. It's about making battle itself impossible. Every time you've engaged us, every time you've scanned our ships or probed our defenses, you've been installing your own defeat." She brought up one final display, a real-time map of the Vraki Empire's military infrastructure. Points of light representing their bases and supply lines were going dark one by one. "I'm transmitting this same message to every ship in your fleet, every base in your empire," Anderson said. "Look at your screens. Watch as everything you've built turns against you. This is what human warfare really looks like." The bridge crew watched in silent awe as the mighty Vraki war machine began to eat itself. Ships fired on their own squadrons. Supply bases reported critical failures. Communication networks dissolved into chaos. "Your choice is simple now, Commander," Anderson concluded. "You can continue this fight and watch your entire military infrastructure destroy itself, or you can accept that there are ways of warfare that your sacred combat trials never prepared you for." She leaned forward, her eyes locked with Vrock's. "You wanted to test humanity's combat prowess. Instead, you're about to learn why the last species that tried to invade us became a cautionary tale. The question is, will you be remembered as the commander who learned from this lesson, or the one who died refusing to accept it?" As if to punctuate her words, another wave of systems crashed throughout the Vraki fleet. The breaking point had arrived, and with it, the true face of human strategic mastery was finally revealed. The bridge of the U.S. reckoning had gone silent as Admiral Elizabeth Anderson stood before the holographic projection of the entire Vraki High Command. Behind her, the vast window showed the remnants of the once proud Vraki fleet, their ships either drifting powerless or moving in erratic patterns as their systems continued to turn against them. "You think you've won." High Commander Vrock's voice was hoarse, his scales almost black with a mixture of rage and fear. "You think this display of treachery proves anything?" "Treachery." Anderson's voice carried through every quantum-entangled communication node they planted, reaching every Vraki ship, every base, every colony. "No, Commander. This isn't treachery. This is evolution." She gestured, and the space around the Vraki ships lit up with thousands of previously hidden weapons platforms. Everything you've seen, the phase-shifting ships, the infiltration teams, the converted mining equipment, that was just the surface. The real question is, why did we let you see any of it? The other members of the Vraki High Command shifted uncomfortably. One of them, his ceremonial armor marking him as the master of combat doctrine, spoke up. "To demonstrate your strength." "No." Anderson's reply was sharp. "To demonstrate your weakness. Every visible strategy we used was a lesson, a chance for you to understand why your entire concept of warfare is obsolete." She brought up new displays, showing the full extent of human infiltration into Vraki space. "Right now, we have enough automated manufacturing systems in your territory to build 10 fleets. Our neural disruption networks can shut down every military installation you have. The quantum viruses in your networks could erase your entire civilization's knowledge base." "Then why haven't you?" Vrock demanded. "Why this game?" Anderson's expression softened slightly. "Because unlike you, we don't fight for glory or honor. We fight to end fights. The question was never whether we could destroy you. It was whether you could learn from this." She touched another control, and the weapons platforms powered down. "Humanity hasn't had a true war in 50 years because we got too good at preventing them. Every conflict we've faced has taught us that the best victory isn't the one that destroys your enemy. It's the one that makes them question why they wanted to fight in the first place. The master of combat doctrine leaned forward. You're offering us a choice. I'm offering you evolution, Anderson corrected. Your combat trials served a purpose once. They let you test the worth of other species without resorting to full-scale war. But they've become a cage, trapping you in an outdated form of warfare that any sufficiently advanced species could turn against you. She brought up one final display, a real-time map of known space. There are things out there far worse than humans, things that won't give you the chance to learn and adapt. Right now, you have a choice. Hold onto your sacred combat trials and eventually meet a species that will simply erase you from existence, or accept that true combat excellence means being willing to change everything about how you fight. The Bridge of the Reckoning remained silent as the Vraki High Command conferred among themselves. Anderson could see the conflict in their expressions, generations of tradition warring with the undeniable evidence of their vulnerability. Finally, Vrak spoke again, his voice different now. The terms of this evolution. First, you acknowledge that the combat trials are over, not just with us, but with everyone. Second, you accept human advisors to help modernize your military doctrine. Third, you use your influence to spread this lesson to other species. Anderson's voice was firm. In return, we'll help you become something new. Warriors who understand that the greatest victory is the one that never requires a shot to be fired. She straightened, her voice carrying the weight of human history. This is our declaration. War isn't about honor or glory. It's about ensuring peace through whatever means necessary. You wanted to test our combat prowess. Instead, we're offering you the chance to test your capacity for growth. The stars outside the window seemed to hold their breath as humanity's message echoed across space. Adapt, or face a future where combat trials would become extinction events. 6 months later, Admiral Elizabeth Anderson stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned joint strike vessel, Evolution's Edge, a hybrid of human innovation and Vraki engineering. Beside her, High Commander Vrak watched as their combined fleet prepared to face a threat neither species had expected so soon. The swarm ships will be here in 20 minutes, Vrak said, his scales now a calm blue of focused concentration. 3 years ago, we would have met them with pure force. Today, he actually smiled an expression he'd learned from his human counterparts. Today we show them why evolution beats extinction. Anderson finished. Commander Hayes, are your shadow teams in position? Yes, Admiral. Jessica Hayes responded from her position at Tactical. Vraki stealth specialists have already adapted our biomimetic technology to their physiology. They're actually better at using it than we are now. The display showed the approaching enemy, a vast hive fleet of biomechanical ships that had emerged from deep space, consuming everything in their path. They had expected easy prey in the Vraki systems. They were about to learn otherwise. Mining engineer Turner's modifications to their industrial equipment are online, Hayes continued. And Sarah Mitchell has finished training their young warriors in tactical drone control. Who knew Vraki had such natural gaming skills? Once they got past the honorable combat mental block, Vrak's second-in-command, Sub-Commander Kex, brought up another display. The quantum network is green across all ships, human and Vraki crews working in perfect sync. He paused, then added with pride, "We've even added some improvements to the basic design." Anderson nodded approvingly. The past 6 months had seen the Vraki transform from a rigid warrior culture into something new, a society that combined their martial pride with human adaptability. Their ships now carried both traditional plasma weapons and phase-shifting technology. Their warriors trained in both direct combat and asymmetric warfare. All ships, this is Admiral Anderson, She broadcast to the combined fleet. The enemy approaching us believes in overwhelming force and direct assault. They're about to learn what happens when you face warriors who have mastered both the sword and the shadow. Vrock stepped forward, adding his own voice to the transmission. This is High Commander Vrock. 6 months ago, humanity taught us that true combat excellence lies not in rigid tradition, but in endless adaptation. Today, we show the galaxy what that lesson means. The bridge crew, a mix of human and Vrocki personnel, worked with seamless efficiency as the battle plan unfolded. Mining ships disguised as debris waited with converted mineral separators ready. Shadow teams had already infiltrated the outer edge of the swarm fleet, planting quantum disruptors throughout their biomechanical network. You know what the best part is, Anderson said quietly to Vrock as they watched the enemy approach. They're expecting either human deviousness or Vrocki direct combat. They're getting both, plus everything we've invented together. The first wave of swarm ships entered the designated zone. Immediately, quantum signals rippled through their neural networks, causing confusion and chaos. Phase-shifting Vrocki warships appeared from nowhere, their traditional energy weapons enhanced with human technology. Drone swarms controlled by young warriors using gaming interfaces struck from multiple vectors. Message from the shadow teams, Hayes reported with a grin. The Vrocki stealth specialists are requesting permission to, and I quote, show these biological automatons why subtlety is an art form. Anderson and Vrock shared a knowing look. The Vrocki had not just adapted. They had embraced evolution with the same passion they once reserved for their combat trials. Their warriors now took pride not in following tradition, but in finding new ways to overcome challenges. Permission granted, both commanders said in unison. As the battle unfolded, it became clear that this was more than just a defense. It was a demonstration of what happened when two species chose to learn from each other rather than fight each other. The swarm ships, for all their biological and mechanical might, had no answer for this new form of warfare. You know, Vrock said as they watched another enemy formation fall to their combined tactics, when you first showed us true devastation, we thought it was the end of our way of life. We were right. But it was also a beginning. Anderson smiled. That's the thing about evolution, Commander. It's not about ending what you are. It's about becoming what you need to be. Around them, human innovation and Vrocki martial skill combined to create something neither species could have achieved alone. It was more than just victory. It was proof that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in refusing to change, but in choosing to grow.